For almost 8 years, Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin had the kind of Hollywood relationship that seemed almost impossible to figure out. They were together, but intensely private. They faced breakup rumors, but survived them. They were reportedly engaged, but never rushed to the altar. And Chris Martin's famous ex-wife, Gwyneth Paltrow, publicly said she loved Dakota. From the outside, this looked like a relationship that had somehow found a way to survive Hollywood. Then came June 2025. People reported that Dakota and Chris had split after nearly 8 years together. But here's what makes the story so interesting. This wasn't the first time people thought they were finished. Less than a year earlier, Dakota's representative had directly denied reports that they had broken up. So what changed? And why did some of Dakota's comments around the time of the reported split suddenly receive much more attention? There's also one major question that fans keep asking. Was there another person involved? We'll get to what is actually known about that, because the internet version of this story and the documented version are not necessarily the same thing. First, rewind to 2017. Dakota Johnson, already internationally famous from the 50 Shades movies, began being linked romantically with Coldplay frontman Chris Martin. Chris was already living under a giant celebrity microscope. He had been married to Gwyneth Paltrow, and they share 2 children, Apple and Moses. Normally, put an A-list actress, an A-list musician, and a famous ex-wife into one story, and you can almost hear the celebrity headlines being written. But something unexpected happened. Instead of public drama between Dakota and Gwyneth, the two appeared to develop a warm relationship. In a Harper's Bazaar interview published in 2020, Gwyneth said something that surprised plenty of people. "I love her." She was talking about Dakota. Gwyneth continued by explaining that the situation might seem unconventional, but that she adored Dakota. And Dakota also became close to Chris's children. In a 2024 interview with Bustle, Dakota spoke about being a stepmother figure and said she loved Chris's children like my life depends on it. That makes what happened later feel much more significant. This wasn't simply 2 celebrities casually dating. Their lives had become connected. And then came another major development. The ring. Dakota had previously been photographed wearing an emerald ring, creating years of engagement speculation. Then, in March 2024, people reported, citing sources, that Dakota and Chris had actually been engaged for years. But there was a catch. They were reportedly in no rush to get married. Think about that for a moment. Years together, a close relationship with his family, a reported engagement, no urgency about a wedding. Was that simply 2 adults comfortable with doing things their own way? At the time, there was no reason to automatically conclude otherwise. But only months later, everything became much more confusing. August 2024. Reports began circulating that Dakota and Chris had separated. For fans, it looked like the end had arrived. Except, Dakota's representative denied it. People quoted her representative saying the breakup reports were not true. They are happily together. That is important, because when another breakup report arrived the following year, fans had every reason to ask, is this just another false alarm? June 2025 gave them their answer. People reported, citing multiple sources, that Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin had split. After nearly 8 years, one of Hollywood's most private relationships had apparently reached the end. And this is where the story gets complicated. Why did they break up? You may have seen dramatic answers online. You may have seen theories about marriage. You may have seen speculation involving other people. But the confirmed public record is much less sensational. Neither Dakota nor Chris publicly gave a detailed explanation, establishing one single reason for the reported breakup. That means we shouldn't take an anonymous social media post, a TikTok theory, or a dramatic headline and suddenly call it fact. And that brings us to the affair question. Was cheating involved? Based on the reliable reporting publicly available around the breakup, there was no established evidence that an affair caused Dakota and Chris to split. That answer may be less explosive than an internet rumor, but it matters. There's already enough drama in what actually happened without inventing another relationship. Now here comes the part that had people looking backward. Just as the breakup news was emerging, Dakota was promoting her romantic drama Materialists. That meant she was doing interviews about dating, relationships, marriage, and heartbreak at an incredibly interesting time. In a June 2025 Los Angeles Times interview, Dakota discussed relationships while talking about the movie and her own perspective on love. After the breakup report, comments like these naturally took on a new meaning for fans. Were there hidden clues? Was she indirectly describing what was happening with Chris? Possibly, but there's no way to establish that from the interview alone. And that uncertainty is almost the perfect summary of their entire relationship. The public was always seeing pieces, a photograph here, a ring there, a rare comment, a breakup rumor, a denial, then another breakup report, but never the complete picture. And remember the question from the beginning. What changed between the 2024 denial and the 2025 breakup? We still don't have a complete answer from Dakota and Chris themselves, but we do know something important. In August 2024, her representative said they were still together. By June 2025, People was reporting that multiple sources confirmed they had split. Whatever happened appears to have happened behind the same wall of privacy that surrounded most of their 8-year relationship. And maybe that explains why people remain fascinated by them. They weren't constantly posting romantic photographs. They didn't turn every anniversary into content. They rarely invited the public completely inside. Yet this relationship lasted longer than many celebrity marriages. So now comes the final question. Could they get back together? Nobody outside their personal circle can responsibly answer that. Previous breakup reports had been wrong, which is precisely why some fans remained skeptical. But the June 2025 reporting described a real split, and until reliable reporting establishes a reconciliation, that remains the story. Still, there's one emotional detail that shouldn't be forgotten. After almost 8 years, separating doesn't just mean ending a romance. Dakota had publicly described how deeply she cared about Chris's children. Their families and lives had become intertwined. And that makes the story bigger than a headline saying Hollywood couple breaks up. Two people can spend years building a life together and still discover that the relationship won't end where everyone expected. No giant celebrity wedding, no fairy tale ending that fans had already written for them. Just an unexpected new chapter. And maybe that's why the question surrounding Dakota and Chris isn't really who caused the breakup. It's this. How can two people appear to have built something so lasting and still decide that lasting forever isn't the right ending? For now, only Dakota Johnson and Chris Martin know the complete answer. And unless they decide to tell it themselves, everything beyond the verified facts remains exactly what it is. Speculation. Now, I want your prediction. Is this truly the final chapter for Dakota and Chris? Or do you think these two will eventually surprise everyone with a reconciliation? Comment your answer below. And if you think this story was complicated, the next Hollywood relationship story gets even messier because a marriage ended, a former co-star entered the picture, and the internet immediately started trying to reconstruct the timeline. But what does the timeline actually prove? That's the story we're covering next.